Hello, everybody. Thanks a lot for joining us this afternoon. I'm Barn with UCAN. We have got running superstar Keira D'Amato on with us. Keira, what is happening?
Not much.
Uh, Super
Not much.
pumped to have you here. We're just going to give people a minute or two to stroll in, and then we will start this off for real. Really appreciate you guys giving up your Wednesday afternoon with us, whether you're at work, whether you're hanging out at home. There's nothing more fun than listening to Kira chat for the next 45 minutes or so. So we really appreciate that. We're going to dive into a whole bunch of different things with Kira. There's a question button as well. We'll open it up to questions with Kira at the end. So feel free to fire them away. And with that, Kira, let's get started for real. So want to welcome everybody joining us for this conversation. Don't call it a comeback with marathon superstar, running superstar Kira D'Amato. Kira, kind enough to join us today. Kira, how are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. Yeah, I'm having a great day. How's your day going?
I'm doing great. Really been looking forward to this and catching up with you. And I know a lot of people who are on live with us this afternoon are looking forward to the same. So Kira, you have an incredible number of accolades. We were just kind of talking about all the things you've accomplished in the sport of running. Set the American marathon, women's marathon record, American women's half marathon record, 10-mile record. You recently set the American Masters half marathon record. You have the Masters 10K record. Unbelievable running career. And now you've added author to your list of accolades. You recently wrote a book, Don't Call It a Comeback. So I think both your accomplishments and kind of the setup for your book, it's a great way to jump into it with you. Maybe you can just kind of give us sort of your journey through the sport of running and how did it inspire what you've written about in your book?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I ran in high school and college, and then I tried to compete post-collegiately, and then I got injured and quit. And that started my about 8 year halftime show from the sport where I was a runner who didn't run. But I think it was everything that I learned during those 8 years that really set me up for an incredible round two. So after the birth of my second child, maybe 8 weeks after, I decided to find the courage to try to run again. And I went out the door, and the furthest I could go was 90 seconds. And I stopped and I cried and I walked home. But I decided I wasn't going to let that defeat me. So 2 days after that, I tried again to go. I made it 3 minutes and celebrated like I won the Olympics. And then this was this beginning of this really beautiful journey that was like, well, if I can run 3 minutes, maybe I can run five. If I can run 5 minutes, maybe I can run 10 minutes and then walk a minute and walk and run another 10 minutes. So it eventually grew after years and years into being able to do a marathon. And I qualified for Boston, and then I qualified for the Olympic trials. And then about 5 years and 4 months after that day that I ran 90 seconds and cried and walked home, I broke the American record in the marathon. So I think that was the premise of my book. Is a lot of people ask me what changed between round one, when I was, a decent runner, maybe qualifying for nationals, to round two, breaking the American record for all women in the marathon. What changed? So I wanted to write a book and hopefully inspire and help other people to start their own. Don't call it a comeback.
It's an amazing story. And, I think like when you talk about that first 90-second run, I mean, it seems kind of crazy at that point that you would have thought what you were able to achieve, with breaking the American marathon record was possible, right? So, and it's, I guess it's very emblematic of like the journey of training for a marathon where it has to be day by day and step by step. But how did that journey kind of work for you where you kind of keep achieving these little things and then suddenly you're achieving like the biggest thing? Was there a certain point in the journey, maybe what I'm asking is like where you started to think extremely big, or was it always just little things at a time?
When I came back into running, I didn't have the confidence to set like a big dream goal. So I really was going day to day and what I could accomplish. And some days I would run further than I even thought I could. And that gave me confidence to dream a little bit bigger. So I feel like I was always mentally playing catch up on my physical abilities. Yeah, and if you would have told me that day that I ran 90 seconds that, Keira, this is day one of training to run a marathon, or this is day one of training to break the American record in the marathon, I would have laughed at you and probably never started because it would have felt too intimidating. But I think for me, being that I'd taken so much time away from the sport, I wasn't comparing myself to the runner I once was. I wasn't trying to set these goals about how fast. Instead, like being a new mother and my husband at the time was deployed, I was instead running for the joy, for community, for all the infinite other reasons why people run outside of how fast. And I think it was just such a gift that I was able to put running back in my life in that way. And I think it was for that reason that I enjoyed it so much that I kept wanting to do it. And then I kept getting faster and faster, even though that really wasn't the goal.
Like when you think about, I guess, the pressure cooker of, maybe say an athlete that is trying to run, at a high level their entire life, there's like always, um, to a certain extent, that performance pressure, right? And you just talked about like your return to running was really fueled by joy and these little successes that had nothing to do with performance. Do you think like for you that sort of pressure cooker cycle would have worked? Like if you had the opportunity, just, if life circumstances kind of allowed you to just pursue that fully post collegiately, do you think you could have had the same success, or do you think you needed to actually step away?
I think I needed to step away. I think running in round one, like you just said, I felt a lot of pressure. I think my self-worth was defined by my last performance, which is a really precarious place to be. So if a race didn't go well, then I would think I wasn't deserving of a good day or a good week, or I needed a chance to prove myself again. And that's a lot of pressure to put on running. And then, like, I think the most beautiful thing that happened after I quit is I was okay. And to me, that's the biggest way you can fail is by quitting. To me, I failed the biggest way I could in the sport by quitting, and I was okay. So I think that was such a beautiful lesson that on the other side of failure, I'll be okay. And I think that has like released me from all pressure because I know like I can go all out and I can go hard and I can go for it and I can like risk it all and go big. And if I don't hit my goal, I'll be okay, which I think a lot of athletes don't figure that out until later. And so it was really a gift to like not feel the pressure and not be afraid to fail in this round too.
Yeah, and I think on that front, like we were talking about at the start, you've accomplished these incredible things in the sport. I guess as you've started to have tremendous successes, getting to know you over the last few years, like I know you're a competitive person, like, and you like setting these records, right? And it's fun to own the record. And also you're obviously somebody that's very supportive of other runners in the sport as well. But like I guess as you started to achieve these big things, like did the performance pressure come back in any way, or did you feel like, hey, I'm equipped to deal with this fact that like the marathon is such a guessing game in a way, and there's so many variables that like I could set the record one day, maybe not run my best the next day, and it's all gonna be okay.
I think I was equipped to handle failure this round because I live a very full life. And even if I have a bad race now, it's not even a bad day because I come home and see my kids and they're like, Mom, can we get a snack? Mom, do you want to play a game? Mom, can we watch Survivor? Mom, like, what's for dinner? And I feel like that just snaps me out of runner Kira and it puts me back into the role that I'm most proud of in being a mother. So I think that that has really helped ground me. And then also, I think just having kids too, like, I realized how I talk to my kids when they're playing sports and what the most I want them to get out of it is to like have the ability to go for it, to work hard, to play hard, to have fun. And when I find myself repeating these to my kids over and over, I'm like, well, that's probably what I should be telling myself too, is have fun, go for it, and pick yourself up. And I think also then having kids, like it's I feel like through this career, I'm showing them how to compete and how to like hopefully like work hard and how to succeed. But I think more importantly, I'm also showing them what happens when you don't hit your goals. Well, you're human and you pick yourself up, you're a good sport, and you figure out how to course correct and become better from it. So I think that that has really helped when I can look at failure as something that we can all learn from and all improve on. And no one in like life wins all the time. And I don't want my kids to think that anybody wins all the time. So I think it's a really healthy thing to show them how to gracefully lose too.
100%. Like it's my son's 6 and just getting into sports now. And, I think that's the biggest, such a big element of like continuing to get joy out of it, even when the outcome doesn't go your way. I think that's like, and there's so much that you said like that I think can be relatable to so many pockets of people, or things you've written about in the book, whether it was like, as a mom kind of going through that postpartum depression and getting back into fitness, or even what you were just saying for any parents of kids, it's like, how do you be a positive influence and like foster that love of sport, or even for the like the runner in general who has to just anybody running who has to deal with ups and downs and failures and races not going their way. When you set out to write this book, did you like have somebody in mind that you were speaking to where you're like, this is who I want this to resonate with? Or was it more like, I'm just going to tell my story and see who it sticks
Oh
with?
man, that is such a great question. And your question just almost made me cry because yes, like I did. Like I wanted to talk to Keira of the past, Keira in her 20s that was like really afraid to fail and felt a lot of pressure. I wanted to talk to Keira who was in her late 20s and kind of floundering with I didn't really have any goals. I wasn't working towards anything. I was a little bit lost, I think. And then Keira in her 30s who's trying to run again and it's like finding the joy and is learning all these beautiful lessons along the way, along with like my kids learning the lessons alongside me. So I wanted to write this book for those people that felt that feel the pressure or feel that they're too old or too busy or there's too much mom or parent or dad guilt. Like there's so many people that I wanted to write this for and show them that we can do hard things and we can put some time aside for ourselves and pursue things that really mean something to us and how to pursue it and how to make it fun. And I think also, like originally, this book, the title was Chasing Happiness. Because to me, like, and I say this in the prologue that it's not a book about running, but I talk about running a lot in the book, but about a girl who has found like, has worked on being happy through running. And it was like through running and setting goals and like being disciplined and grinding it out and like through hitting goals and failing goals, I learned how to like find the best version of myself. And so that is what I wanted to share too. But I'm glad you asked that too, because like setting out to write a book about myself felt really vain. And so I like for years, like people were saying you need to write a book. And I kept saying like, one, I don't have my ending yet, which was a nice way to dismiss that I just felt like I didn't have a story. But I didn't want it to be something that just felt, I don't know, that people wanted to hear just my biography. I wanted it to be something that people can learn from, that they can laugh from, that, in the same way where you'd watch like Ted Lasso. It's like a story about soccer, but is it really about soccer? So I'm hoping that people pull a lot of like little gems out that they can apply and make them a happier version of themselves too.
Well, that's really cool to hear kind of that process that you went through, and you're already dropping some gems on us today. So I appreciate that. Just a couple more, and then I want to transition to a different topic. So the big scary dreams that you talk about, you kind of alluded to here, in your book, like what are those dreams for you now, as you've reached like, I mean, I'm sure there still are like performance dreams, like, perhaps wanting to podium or win a world major or other things like that. But like, yeah, what does that look like for you? Are your dreams very performance oriented? Are they longevity oriented? Are they something else? What does it look like?
I think you summed it all up. I have like all sorts of different goals. And I think like my first goal that's more about the we than the me is showing us all what we can do as we age. So I just turned 41 and I am one of the older pro marathoners in the field. And I am so proud of that to show everyone what is possible. And I think runners before me, like Meb, is a really good example, and Sarah Hall. And there's been a bunch of runners that have continued to push this bar forward. And I want to, follow their path and show us all what we can do as we age. And, even getting into the sport in my like late 30s, people would ask me, don't you think you're too old to compete in this stuff? And so, I mean, I talk about it a lot in the book, but that's like the stick it to the man that I want to show us all what we can do. And I think there needs to be more people going for it in this way to kind of move that bar forward for everyone. But so that's, I think, one of my biggest whys. But then also, like, I wrote a whole chapter in this, but I firmly believe the best is yet to come. And I'm so excited to see what that best is. And like mentally, I feel like stronger and more resilient than ever. And physically, things are really clicking in a beautiful way. So I'm excited to see what that all translates to. Um, and then, rewriting just some of the record books still, I think is really cool. And then just to be, um, just like a solid mentor in the sport. I really want to encourage like other women, other mothers, other girls that are entering the marathon. Like, what we can do and hopefully help them find their own best. So I hope to play a really positive role bringing other people up in the sport as well.
You've been out a lot in the community, I guess, for the last several months, with various book events and appearances. I'm sure you've had a chance to kind of talk to a lot of different people who your story resonates with. We did an event with you in Boston back in April. That was prior to the book launch, but still, you told your story and we had an opportunity to see firsthand. So, like, what is that? Because I think like such an interesting and special part of the connection that pro runners can have is there's so much similarity between pros and other fellow runners in a way where there might not be the same relatability with other sports. What's that community connection been like for you? Not to say it's new because you've been doing stuff in the community for a while, but has anything really struck you in this latest round of meeting people and getting them to kind of share their appreciation with you?
Yeah, I think I love being part of the running community. And I think like even just I go to a playground with my kids and I see like another mom that has on a Garmin watch and she's carrying her water bottle, hopefully full of UCAN, and wearing her running shoes. And like you just spot like another runner and you just feel so instantly connected to them. And I mean, lining up for, these big world major marathons that you're lining up with 30, 40, 50,000 other people that are all starting at the same starting line and all finishing at the same finish line, arms raised, proud that they finished, is just really special. And you feel connected and you know what they're fighting through during those miles to get to the finish line. But yeah, with this book, I think it's allowed me to connect even deeper. I think sharing some of my biggest like vulnerabilities in the book with, the times it was really hard being, solo parenting to getting back into running and feeling the mom guilt and how I processed and worked through all that. There have been a lot of women that have come up to me and said that they appreciate me talking about the silent weight that mothers carry around. So I think that that has just been really special. And hopefully it like, I mean, sometimes when you're in the trenches of parenting, it can feel pretty lonely. So I really appreciate that people have maybe felt seen or not felt alone going through something. I mean, parenting is one of like the biggest blessings you can have, but it's also really extremely hard at times too. So I think that that's been really special. And then I think a lot of people, because I got into marathoning later in life, especially as like a pro, like I think I signed my first pro contract when I was 36, which is, probably a decade and a half later than most of my like competitors. But I think a lot of people can relate to putting something on the back burner and having some unfinished business or just starting something a little bit later in life. So yeah, I really have appreciated connecting with the community, and it's like such a big part of my why that it's, yeah, really special to me.
That's awesome. And we've obviously talked a lot about your story and kind of the different people that can really connect with it and take inspiration from it. But like you're also a seriously badass runner, and I think people want to people love kind of geeking out on some of the training techniques and things you've done to make you as fast as you are. So let's transition a little bit into that. I want to ask you, you're kind of in the thick of marathon training right now, right? You're getting ready to run the Valencia marathon in December. You'll be running the BAA half marathon here pretty soon. What is it, in a week or two?
Yeah, it's a week from Sunday.
There
Yeah.
you go. So yeah, so you're kind of in the midst of it. So let's dive a little bit into kind of the training that makes you who you are. And just real quick before I do that, I do want to just in the chat for people that are on live with us, I will just link to Kira's book. You can get it on Amazon. We will be sending a link out to it and have a special giveaway for some signed copies as well, which lets you know about towards the end here. But just wanted to put that in the chat since we were talking about it. But yeah, Kira, in terms of your training, like you have definitely maybe undergone a little bit of a shift in how you've approached training for a marathon over the last couple of years. So maybe just talk us a little bit through that. Like, what does your training look like today, and what were some of the decisions that you've gone through over the last couple of years to kind of structure your training in the way
Yeah.
it's structured today?
I used to live in Richmond, Virginia, and about a year and a half ago, we moved to Park City, Utah to join Ed Eyestone's pro team. And that's been really, really fun to have just a group of people that are all really getting after it. And, Connor Mance just broke the American record in the marathon, and Clayton Young just recently competed at World Championships. And I have a whole slew of women that I'm training with that are relatively newer to the marathon, but it's been really fun to learn from them as they're learning. But my training has changed a lot. I think one, that I'm training at altitude is a huge difference. It's the first time in my career I've trained at altitude, and I was so curious what that would look like for me. And then at iStone's training, we're on a 6-day week. We take Sundays off, which is incredible. Having a day off is awesome, to sleep in and make waffles and just not rush. And then you just get everything you need to get done that day. But my mileage is higher. So I'm higher on 6 days than I was before on 7 days. And just his workouts are a little different. We still get in some speed work on the track, but we're doing a lot more tempo work, a lot more marathon pace, a lot more longer tempo runs. And then in every long run, we add a little bit of like spicy miles. So towards the end of a long run, we'll do about 3, 4, 5 miles at marathon pace, which is great because you're getting used to running marathon pace when you're 16, 18 miles into a long run. So you're already fatigued and you're tired and you're learning to lock back in. So I think that's been a really fun adjustment. Maybe not fun during those pickup miles, but I think overall it's made me pretty strong and hardy. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what it translates to. Yeah, about 5 weeks out. And this is the time when and I'm not just saying this because this is a UCAN webinar, but I think when you're about a month out, you really want to make sure your nutrition is nailed in. So we're practicing nutrition on all of our tempo runs, all of our long runs. I'm going into workouts feeling exactly how I would marathon day. And because it takes your body, I mean, your stomach is a muscle just like any other muscle, that it takes weeks for it to learn how to digest and how to move and how to make it work for you. So it's this point in the training where I become very, very dialed in with nutrition too. So that's also exciting too, because then you go in feeling like race day. You don't need to think about, oh, what am I going to do today? Because I've been practicing it. I mean, I practice it the whole build, but I really, really lock in about 4 to 6 weeks out.
We're going to dive into nutrition and fueling, and I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions about that in just a minute. You said some interesting things on the training side of things. Those spicy miles, those miles that you're talking about running at marathon pace. Are you running? So, kind of, is that more incorporated into your workouts now than it was previously? And yeah, is that something you recommend, for other people if they're training for a marathon, to kind of test, allowing themselves to go at that pace, maybe a little bit more frequently than they might be used to?
100%. I think you need to go into it like it's a workout though. So if you're doing a workout Friday and then a long run Saturday, I would not recommend back-to-back workouts like that. But if you can swing it that you're doing a workout on Thursday and then a long run on Saturday or Sunday, I would absolutely recommend putting some miles in there. We typically do, let's just say, an average of about 3 miles, and we make it about 5 miles from the end of the run. So this past weekend we did a 20 miler. So at 15, I did 3 pickup miles and then 2 miles cool down. But I think that has really because in long runs, you just get locked into this pace similar to a marathon. So to be able to shake it up and work through that. And it's funny because we were actually discussing this maybe like a month ago, that when you do a tempo run from the start, you really are kind of mirroring the beginning of marathon pace, right? Because you're going in fresh, you're feeling like you would pretty close to at the beginning of a marathon. But we do these tempo miles in a long run, you're really practicing running through like you would at mile 20, which it's really hard to simulate the fatigue and the weight and the just how heavy you feel without running 20 miles. So it's nice that we can kind of double dip and also, work on time on feet long run, and then also work through what you're going to have to work through at mile 20, 22, 24. So it's nice. It hurts, but it's nice. Because then when you feel that in a race, you think, okay, I've worked through this, X number of times during this build. I know how to work through this grind.
Right. And you're kind of giving yourself that practice without putting the burden on your body to run the entire workout at that pace, right? You're kind of able
Exactly.
to replicate it towards the end. Yeah, that's super interesting. What for you, what's the pace difference between those tough miles and, kind of the coasting long
Mhm.
run pace?
So we usually, our long runs are probably, we start maybe a minute and a half slower than marathon pace, and then we get into maybe going 45 seconds to a minute slower than marathon pace, maybe a little slower. So right now, let's say my marathon pace roughly is 5:20. Long runs, I'll average maybe 6:30 for those for most of it. And then those spicy miles, I'll, get down close to 5:20. Last week, I think it was just over 5:20, and then my last one was 5:18, I think. So just hovering right around that marathon pace.
Guys, you know she's fast when she's casually dropping a 5:20 and 5:18 without flinching. One more on the training. You mentioned this in a couple ways, like training with a group now. You both kind of previously were saying how you like to, sort of give back to others and younger runners in the sport, but also talking about how you like to learn from the younger marathons. And there's obviously many different ways to train for and have success for a marathon. People train in groups, people train by themselves. What have you found like the group environment has brought to you in terms of like potentially improving your performance, or has it brought anything to you that you feel like does contribute to improved performance?
I mean, I think overall, like when you train with a group, there's someone else holding you accountable. So you're showing up, and some days I show up like I just had a whole pot of coffee, and some days I show up and my hair's a mess. Like there's like, I don't know, kids spilled something on my shirt, So like I never quite know how I'm going to show up, but I feel like when you have a group, consistently someone is willing to pull that, like, hey, good morning, everyone, let's go. So I appreciate just the vibes that come from a group atmosphere. And then also, like, we'll be cooling down, and, like our men will work out separate than our women, but cooling down with like a Connor or Clayton or Casey or just whoever it is, and asking them about their workout. Like, how'd you feel? Like, how did it go? Like, how are your paces? And just, like, there was one workout maybe 6 months ago, and I couldn't come like anywhere near my projected times. And I cooled down, like, what just happened? And I cooled down with Connor and Clayton. They're like, oh, we were like 10 seconds off a mile. And so then I realized, okay, either it was something in the training that we all came in flat, maybe it was the weather, but I think that just helped set expectations. Like, okay, I'm on par. That wasn't what I was supposed to do today, but that was okay. But then, like, recently I cooled down with Clayton, and I was like, so, like, what paces are you trying to run for when, when he says this? Like, how do you relate that to what type of marathon shape you're in? And since like Connor and Clayton have gone through this build with Coach Ed Eyestone so much more, it's just nice to get that feedback. And then for the younger runners that come in with just such passion and excitement and curiosity and asking me questions, like it really helps like remind me, like, I don't know what it's all about, which is like really, really special too. So I tell people I'm always going to be a student of the marathon. Like I've done a bunch of them now, but I feel like I'm always learning every time I do one. So it's cool to be with other people that are curious and want to learn too.
Yeah, that's a cool kind of dynamic in your group, right? Because you have obviously people that look up to you and are probably like a sponge soaking for your advice, and then you also have contemporaries and other high performers who you can also turn to and
Mhm.
get kind of advice from. And I guess that's probably for a lot of people, if you're training in a big group, like you're gonna always have people that, do things better than you and people who want to learn from you, right? So you kind of have that give and take, which it sounds like you very much have in the group that you're in.
Absolutely. And just processing things, like just recently with Connor breaking the American record. I don't know too many other people that have broken an American
Yeah, it's a pretty
record,
exclusive club.
It
When
just
you guys are cooling down together, that's a pretty special club.
It really is. But like for me, like also just calibrating my journey with his, like afterwards, just asking him, like, have you processed this? Like, how do you process this? And just being able to talk through that. Because for me, breaking it, and I think I'm a very different, I'm going to say animal in a nice way, a very different animal than Connor, where he was a national championship in college and immediately turned pro. So we've had very different careers, but it was very confusing for me breaking the American record. And I couldn't, it took me a really long time to process that achievement. So just like chatting with him, and like he too was like, I mean, he knew he could run that time and he was super confident, but just processing it is a lot because you've been aiming for this goal for years and years and years. You think about it for on runs and runs and runs. You visualize it like almost every single workout you like trying to hit. So it's like you're obsessive working
Right.
towards this goal, and then you hit it, and like you almost don't know what to do with that. So that was just interesting processing with him. And so that, yeah, that's been real special.
Yeah, that is really unique kind of achievement, right? And like you're saying, you go for it and you only have one or two chances a year to go
Mhm.
for it, but you're kind of dedicating your entire year to prepping and going for it. So
Right.
amazing achievement. And yeah, I remember how jazzed we were when you broke it that day. It was super, super, super exciting. So we talked about the training here. We talked about your journey. We got a little bit of time left. Let's kind of dive into fueling because it's such an important piece of marathon performance. And you already talked about, practicing it and really needing to work on it to get it right. And of course, like the core fuel for marathoners and runners is going to be carbs and carbohydrates, and they come in a lot of different forms, whether it's food, whether it's gels, drinks. With most of the products out there, the carbs are going to be sugar based. So they're designed to give you this quick energy. With UCAN, we use a different carb, a starch based carb, and it's more of a steady and even release. So the fueling sort of protocols and mechanisms behind it are a little bit different, and it digests and works differently as well. So you've had now, I guess, 3 plus years, right? I think you and I first connected maybe back in, trying to think, either late 2021 or late 2022 as you were training for New York
Mhm.
City. And so yeah, maybe I'll let you pick it up from there instead of me telling the story. How did you encounter UCAN, and I guess why did you encounter it? Like why did you want to give it a try?
So I wanted to give it a try because the fueling I was using was not working for me anymore. I was getting terrible headaches at night, I think because of all the sugar. And during races, I was finding I would immediately feel a spike, but then I was crashing. And so I was craving a lot during races itself. And then also in one race in particular, my body started rejecting it because I think it was just too much sugar. So I was searching for a new product to work with. And then at the 20K championships, I had just won the USATF 20K championships. And I was hanging around and I was talking to fans and taking pictures. And someone came up, my father-in-law came up and brought me a cup of the UCAN. And he gave and I took it down and I just immediately felt so good. And another gentleman walked by and he's like, "Hey, you want me to get another cup for you?" And I was like, "Why do you know a guy?" And he's like, "I am the guy." And so it was then just like how good and how steady, like I didn't feel it was like everything I needed in that moment. So then we started talking and you were so nice. You sent me a bunch of product. I tried it out for a few months in training and I loved one, how easy it was on my stomach. Like my body was taking it in. It was no longer rejecting it. I was worried that I was going to reject all fuel. And so UCAN was the first that I would take it down and it just sat fine. It's so easy to take down because it's more liquidy. So the consistency is just smooth. And then just the way I felt, like I wasn't having those crashes. I wasn't having the surges and crashes, and then afterwards like my headaches went away. And so it was just like a real like blessing to find a fuel that was working for me and that I wasn't, knowing I was going to go into the pain cave that night because of all the sugar I was taking in. I feel like it's been so consistent with me. I've now used it for 3 years and my body has never rejected it. I liked the feeling that I have. I feel really steady. I feel strong. I don't feel hungry. It's really, really worked well. And I just also think your array of products, how they work really well together too. So you guys have a UCAN Energy. It's a powder that I put in my drink going to the starting line. So I'll drink it before. So that's my way to kind of like preload. And then during, like right before I start a workout, a marathon or a race, I'll take a gel right before. And then I'll take a gel every 10K. And then I alternate 5Ks in between. So every other 10K, then I'll do some sort of electrolyte drink, like the UCAN Hydrate. And so that I feel like covers all bases and I feel good. I feel steady. I feel strong. And then within 30 minutes of any run or workout or just effort, I try to get protein in immediately because that helps me recover. And I found the older I've been getting, just the more protein I need, the more recovery I need, and I need to like nail my recovery as soon as I stop that run. So for me, it's like when I stop the run, like part two begins, and I take that very, very seriously now to make sure that I can be showing up, at full force for the next run or workout.
Yeah, that's a really great insight, and you kind of alluded to Meb before as one of the sort of uh, I guess like really great examples of longevity, or even Sarah Hall. And I know working with them at UCAN, like as they got more advanced in their career, recovery was like Meb especially. He was so meticulous about recovery and protein consumption. He felt like that was as important for him to support the training and the day-to-day training as, that was as important as the sort of the fueling during training. So it's interesting to hear you bring that up as well. You talked about some of the challenges you were having. I guess, it's kind of you go through this marathon world and interact with so many fellow marathon runners. Like what are sort of common fueling questions or sort of fueling challenges that you talk about, runner to runner with your teammates that you train with, or even just other runners in general?
Well, I think a lot of people like they always ask me like how I feel on race day, and I need to like specify like I feel this way on race day because I'm also doing the same exact way on long runs. I'm doing it the same way in workouts. Like you need to practice, practice, practice your fueling. And so it always surprises me when people are trying to change something on race day. Like stick to what you know, but make sure you are practicing it during your whole build, ideally. And people ask me like how often I take things, um and I think also like people that are having issues with stomach issues a lot, I really, really try to push them to UCAN because it's been so easy for me to take down and keep down. And usually if your body is like rejecting it, either one, you haven't practiced enough with it, or two, like something's not working with your body. Maybe it's too much sugar or, I don't too much carbs or whatever it is. So finding something that really works for you. And kind of, we were talking about this earlier, but for me, like the more I practice, the more intuitively I know what I need. So like I have like a really strong game plan going into races, but I also leave a little bit of room like in case I miss a bottle, what do I do? Well, I have an extra gel to make sure I can get in those calories. I practice that during long runs too. Like what happens if I miss a bottle? Because I miss at least one bottle. And I will also say having your own bottles during a marathon is a super privilege. Um, but being able to like I carry my own gels so I can have make sure that, I have those at the duration I want. If I start feeling really, I call it hangry in a race, like if the negative thoughts start steeping in, or I'm thinking, oh man, I don't know if I can finish that, that usually is a sign that I need energy. And so I'll take a gel then, even if it's a little bit sooner than I would have taken it, or I'll make sure to get some water too, or something. But to me, that's my body telling me that I'm running out of energy. And so I'm starting to get negative. So that's like a correlation that I've connected recently. So if I'm getting hangry in a race, just take a gel. Also, like I use like I've been teased about this. I don't know why, but I use gels on as many races as I can to practice taking them in races for a marathon. So even during a 10K, I've taken a gel before. I almost took a gel during the track championships this summer, but I thought, okay, I don't want to like make fun of the track. Like this, I didn't want it to like come off bad that I wasn't taking it seriously or something, but so I didn't, even though I wanted to, and I took it right before I went out on the track.
For
But like I'll
sure.
practice it. Like I have a half marathon coming out, and I'm gonna practice taking gels during that to make sure that my body knows how to take gels during a race. So if you have a goal race, I definitely recommend a month out, picking a shorter distance, and then practice your fueling during that race too, so you can get used to it. Practice taking gels in the middle of the race when there's people around you and you're running fast and you're like breathing hard to make sure that you can know how you can get it in. So yeah, those are all kind of, I guess, just little rambling tips, but
Great stuff. That's great insights. And you mentioned the ease on the stomach of UCAN, and a lot of that is due to the unique carbohydrate, the starch. It doesn't require as much fluid as sugar to digest, doesn't pull as much water into your stomach. It's also the gels consistency wise, they're just kind of easier from a mouthfeel standpoint to get down than a lot of thicker gels. And then the energy aspect of UCAN, that's another unique element of it, right? It's definitely not this instant flash, but then there's also not the crash. So I wanted to ask you from a sort of energy feeling standpoint, did it take you time to adjust to that where it was like, hey, I'm used to taking gel and like feeling this immediate charge, and with UCAN, it's more of like the prolonged feeling of being at a baseline versus this immediate high and low. Like, did that take getting used to for you, or was it like, hey, I can actually digest this, all systems go because I can actually take it in?
that's a really good question. I don't think there was really any. transition for me because yeah, because I was digesting it, I was getting it in, and then I wasn't crashing. So, right, so you need the sugar because you're crashing and you're craving more sugar. So it was easy because I wasn't crashing. So I wasn't craving it in the same way, and I didn't need the spike like I would when I was crashing. So I don't think it really needed any transition. And like with the stomach, I've never had any issues at all, which hearing you talk about just needing less water makes a lot of sense. There are some runs I go on that I'm like, oh, I like this is a little bit longer. Like I don't know if I'll be able to find a water stop at a bathroom, but I'll take gels even without water and be totally fine. I definitely prefer having a little water to help like digest and erase. I like really focus on that. But yeah, there have been times I've taken a gel without water and been totally fine too, which I could never have gotten away with other products.
In terms of fueling, there's a ton of conversation right now around high carb fueling and kind of pushing the threshold of carbs per hours. I think previously like 60 to 90 grams was kind of thought to be the max threshold for kind of peak ends of performance. Now we're talking about 100 plus grams, and certainly as an intro to that conversation, like intensity and length of effort are definitely going to drive your carbohydrate needs. And the carb per hour recommendations, a lot of those are geared more at elite runners like Keira. But sort of what we found that's interesting is because of the way UCAN metabolizes and digests, like, we have seen people able to achieve peak performance without needing to take on the same carbohydrate load as they might need to with sugars just because it metabolizes differently. So Keira, for that's sort of a long preamble, but to set up the question, but for you, like, are you a carb counter? Are you going in saying like, I'm trying to get this much per hour? Do you kind of just go by feel? How have you sort of approached that element of like, how many carbs do I need? And then, roughly speaking, I think it would just be interesting, for a two, gosh, I'm gonna let you stay. What's your marathon PR again? Tell me your marathon.
219, yeah.
219, right? I was gonna say sub 220, so I was right on there.
Yeah.
So 219 marathoner, like I think it'd be really interesting for people to hear like how many carbs do you feel like you need per hour to perform your best?
Yeah, that is, I feel like that there's tons of talk about that. And I think the short answer is everyone is so different and it's very individual. And I think the more that you can get in, the better, but you need to make sure that you can digest it. It's not, plain, you're not having to take a bathroom stop. You're not, so it's like, it's the more the better, but if you're go over that red line, then it's not good at all. So I have like a spreadsheet that I use that tracks like, and I track it after my long runs, I track it after my races, and I studied it going into it to make sure that I'm getting enough like fluid ounces, that I'm getting enough sodium, and that I'm getting enough carbs. And so I know that if I miss a gel or if I miss a bottle, like what do I need to do to adjust? But I'm not like, I think I found something that works for me. So I am not like, I guess, getting on the trend with seeing how many more I can get. But I know what works for me, what feels sustainable, what I'm doing on a daily basis is working. So I'm totally blanking on the number right now that I'm aiming for on the top of my head, but I'm like I do track it to make sure that I know how much I'm getting and that and then every race that I've done, I go back and fill in what I've done just so I can keep tracking that. But yeah, so as much as you can without feeling nauseous, I think is the answer, but you really have to like slowly work up to that. And I feel like I haven't needed as much just with the UCAN electrolyte like duo that I've been doing, but I don't know when it's working, I guess.
Definitely. And when we've talked previously and you've shared your plan previously, you've kind of talked about like a gel every 10K or so during the marathon. Is that sort of still the frequency which you're on, or have you tightened that up at all?
Yeah, that's usually what I aim for. So I'll take one at the start and then I take one every 10K. And then there have been times where I've been like really struggling. So usually I'll take one right before and then I'll pack five, I guess, or maybe I pack four and I put one on a bottle, but I have access to at least five gels. So usually I'll take a start and then four during. So the one after 18, usually I'll take another around 21 or 22 just to like give me that little pickup. But I make sure I have access to more. And especially if I drop a water bottle, then I know I need to fill in another gel to get in those extra, the extra fuel.
Yep. So like, quick back of the napkin math, if gel is like 20 grams of carbs and your 10K is a little bit over 30 minutes, then we're probably, and then sometimes you're taking an extra one, we're probably talking in the range of 40 to 60 grams of carbs per hour, kind of, depending on the race or depending on the hour of the race. So yeah, I would say like you pointed out, it's definitely not low carb, like you're getting in a great sufficient amount of carbs, but it's definitely more on the moderate side of things. And that's typically what we've seen, with high-end pros like yourself who are using UCAN is the dosing is higher than say somebody running a 4-hour marathoner, but it's
Right.
not necessarily needed to push those 100-gram per hour thresholds to still feel good and feel strong. So yeah, no, appreciate you sharing that with us.
Yeah.
Um, Awesome. Well, we're gonna just ask a couple audience questions for you, Kira, before we let you sign off today, and really appreciate the time and all of the input. But actually, before I do move off that, so you can, there's a bunch of different flavors, and I know you have a unique sort of grab bag approach to
Mhm.
flavors for a marathon. So tell us a little bit about that, and then also what are your favorite sort of products or flavors?
So during a marathon, I'll stick the gels either in my bra, or Nike actually just made me shorts so I can stick them in. But I'll put a whole bunch of different flavors in there, and then I pick one out randomly, and it's like a little like exciting little treat, I guess, in the middle. So I really like, my favorite I think is pineapple, but I love orange, I love strawberry, I love unflavored. So I'll kind of make a grab bag of those and put them in my shorts and then pick them out randomly. And then it's kind of fun because it's like, oh, what am I going to get this time? And yeah, so that's kind of, but yeah, those are the flavors. I like all the fruity flavors a lot. And then for the energy, I love the cranberry, I love the orange. And then the hydrate, I think my favorite is watermelon. But I also, I mean, the lime is really good too. So
Awesome. Well, let me turn it over to some questions from the audience, and I will stay on the gels right now because Deborah had a question about the gels. Do you use caffeinated gels? We've talked, you've messed around with some of them in your training. What's your take on caffeine? And if you've used the caffeinated gels, how have you used them?
yeah, I used to, this was years ago, like toy around with it a little bit more. And I love the surge that I get from the caffeine, but it also, there have been times where I've gotten a side stitch after taking a gel. So I am like, recently I have not been using any caffeine gels. I'm really excited with the new gel that UCAN's releasing, that has a little bit less caffeine because I feel like that will give me a little pep without being too much. But yeah, with anything, just train and train and train with it. But I do like, I drink coffee right before I go. So there is caffeine in my system, but I'm just nervous to take the risk with caffeine, just the way that my body responds to it sometimes. But I know a lot of my teammates and a lot of like other pros that I race against, they swear by that caffeine. I will say if you are going to use a caffeine gel, once you go caffeine gel, don't go back to a regular gel because your body then is craving that and the regular gel won't play as much. So if you were going to add maybe one or two caffeine gels, I would save those for the last two during your race. Um, because if you start out with one and then you don't get it, your body's going to be looking for that. At least that's what I've heard, and I'm not a nutritionist. But so I would save it towards later, and then once you transition to caffeine, stick with caffeine gels. But I am like really excited to try the watermelon and try to incorporate that in because I do love that little like buzz feeling you get with it.
Totally. And yeah, I think that's a good tip. I think typically caffeine would be most effective at the start to kind of give you that burst off the top, like you were talking about starting off with coffee, and then certainly towards the end, caffeine has been studied to reduce the perception of exhaustion and fatigue. So it really will aid you mentally in those late miles of the marathon when it gets really tough. Couple other questions for you, Kira, from Marcella. Marcella, she said, I have a running club, Sunrise Runners, an all women's run club that's reading your book. What advice would you give those runners, ooh, she said, that are running their first marathon in one sentence? But I don't know if I want to limit you to a sentence. So you can stick with the sentence if you want, but if you want to give 5 sentences or 10 sentences, be free. And we haven't even talked about this, but Kira's the joke queen. So if you limit it to a sentence, Marcella, you might get a joke instead of some sound
I
advice,
know.
but you take it in whatever direction you want.
So, okay, so one, this is not my advice, but I want to say congratulations on embarking on the marathon journey. I think this is one of the coolest things you can do. It was life-changing for me. And so I'm just so excited that you guys are doing a first marathon. And I think finding the courage to do that is just so beautiful. So I'm so proud of you guys. Not that you need me to be proud of you to do it, but I'm just really excited for you. But I guess, oh, advice would be patient. And it's like that sucks as advice because it's not like sexy and fun, but I think you're going out for your first marathon, so be patient and let it come to you and just trust that everything you need for that marathon is already inside you. So be confident that you can do this, but be patient and then make sure you have like an awesome finish line pose too. So when you're crossing the finish line, you don't need to plan it, but just make sure when you see that finish line, like let all the emotion out, raise your hands, fly across, make a weird face. But yeah, like really live up the moment. But yeah, have fun with it. Yeah, that was more than one sentence. I'm sorry. But
There was a bunch of commas in there, so technically it was actually just a
it
it was
was
just a
a
long
run-on
run-on
sentence.
sentence.
Yeah, a run-on sentence. Yeah.
We'll let it
Semicolon.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, be patient might not be sexy, but it's like if there's anybody that's a living example of be patient and great things will happen, it's you, right? So it's I think it's very, very accurately depicts your story. Do you still make funny faces even as a pro when you cross the finish
Oh
line?
yeah. Oh yeah. Nothing has changed. It's funny. If you go back to pretty much any of my marathon finishes, I look like I either look like I've just seen a ghost or I look like so incredibly happy to be done running. It's like kind of a mix of that, but I'm just so thrilled to make it to any finish line that I just let all the emotion come out.
That's awesome. I'm gonna have to start paying attention to that. We have one last question from Atava. So you talked about the post-run recovery with the protein and how important that is to you. What about recovery days as a whole? Like you have this I think the 6 day on schedule, right? And then the seventh day off. So what does that seventh day look like for you? Is there any exercise at all, stretching, cross training, or is it pure off my feet recovery?
I don't do anything. Like I will like last Sunday I went for like a little bike ride with my kids, but like for fun, not for any sort of like benefits. But I really like I allow myself to mentally detach and like physically just relax. And then I try to make sure that I'm like it's a day after a long run and usually those days I'm super super hungry. So I'm trying to feed into whatever my body's craving, unless it's craving some weird stuff. You know, but like if I'm craving
What's weird? Well, it's
well, like, okay, there's times I like crave marshmallows all the time. And for me, it's like, okay, that's not, maybe I can eat a couple marshmallows, but that also probably means that I'm tired and maybe I need a nap, maybe I need to sleep better. So, like, those, but if it's like I really need like a cheeseburger or I really need a big pasta meal or I really want rice, like, I kind of lean into those because I feel like that's what my body's telling me I need. So, yeah, so I really like recover hard on recovery days.
I'm gonna ask you one, and I saw somebody raising their hand. Jeff, I think I saw you in the crowd raising your hand. If you want to type your question in the chat for Keira, happy to share it with her. We got Halloween coming up. What's your Halloween costume?
Well, I have like a Halloween uniform that I wear every year. Have these like boots that come up to my knees that look like Yeti, like Bigfoot boots. And like they're the coolest pair of shoes that I own, but I really only find one time a year to wear them, unfortunately. And then I have a shirt that's like kind of an inside joke with my family that it's a really long story, but it just says meat thing on it. So I wear that with my crazy boots, and that's kind of what I do every year. And I do have a hat that's like a skeleton dabbing. So it's kind of a mix of just all my favorite Halloween stuff. But it's really fun to see what my kids want to be. My son this year wanted to be Left Shark from Katy Perry's like halftime show, which
Wow,
like I don't think he was
that's
alive for that. But like
has that
why?
gotten like popular on the internet again,
I
or
have no
popular on
idea.
TikTok?
I'm like
Wow,
so out of it. I have no idea. But so that's going to be really fun. Him dancing in that shark costume is hilarious. So I'm here for
nice.
it.
I've got Steve from the Minecraft movie in my family. That's what my son's being. So
Oh,
it's
that's
funny to
cool.
see the kids. They keep you young, right? They kind of take you through that you get exposed to all different cultural references and social
Yep,
media references and memes through kids, and then we're trying to make
absolutely.
the dad and mom jokes ourselves
Yep.
over here.
Yeah, it's just not as funny when dad or mom says it though.
No, never. Well, Keira, it's been a pleasure. Love chatting with you every time. Love having these sessions with you. A lot of wisdom that people can learn from. So just want to thank you for being with us. Thank you so much to everybody who joined us. One more time, Keira, just tell us about Don't Call It a Comeback, the book, and where people can get it.
Yeah, Don't Call It a Comeback is sold wherever books are sold. I love like local bookstores. So if you can support your local bookstore, that's awesome. But I also, it's on Audible and they asked me to read it. So if you found my voice not super annoying during this webinar, you might like the Audible. It's nice because then you can take me on a long run with you, which like part of the tone of the book, I wanted to feel like we were on a long run together and me just like tell, on a long run that like everything comes out. So that's kind of the story of the book. But so Audible, I read it and I laugh at my jokes before I get to the punchline, but I think that makes it a little bit more Kira. So that's perfect. So, but yeah, wherever books are sold. And thank you for your support.
How many marathons would you have to run in the time it took you to read that Audible book? Was it
Four, maybe.
four? Like
So I
eight,
think it's
eight
just
to 10?
over 10 hours. So maybe 4 or 5, maybe. Yeah,
Okay,
that's a lot of
wow.
marathons. Yeah.
That's a lot of
But you
math.
can also speed it up. So you like, I usually listen to Audible books on 3.0. I'm really weird. I think that's like,
3.0.
I
See that,
think that's
I would say that's the biggest difference between a fast person. Like a fast runner can process at 3.0. I'm like two is my max, and even two is like
two
I
is
gotta be
good. Two is
locked
really
in, you
good.
know?
But it has to be the right narrator. So I
Yeah.
don't think I'm a very good narrator because I listened to mine back and I couldn't put it faster than 2. So I might not recommend going much faster than 2. I mean, I'll sound a little bit like a chipmunk, but maybe that's exciting for somebody.
Well, awesome. Well, you that's a great experience, great way to entertain yourself on your run. But yeah, I just want to thank you again, Keira. Thank you everyone for being on with us. And you will get an email copy of this entire discussion, a link to Keira's book, and some more resources from us in just a little bit. But I'm Varun and Keira. We will talk soon. Bye. See everybody.